Hi everybody, Florence Theriault here again. Thank you for welcoming me into your living room, and I hope we can have some good conversation here about some of our favorite things in our lives, which are beautiful and some not so beautiful dolls, some just wonderful and curious, and all from our upcoming auction, Keeper of the Doll, which will be held on August 18th, featured in this wonderful catalog. Now, I have had the privilege of working with the Connie Bailey collection of antique dolls, which are the highlight of this catalog and include, as you can see on the table, we'll talk about them in a minute, the most wonderful collection of all-bisque miniatures and Marklin carriages that have come our way in many, many years. To have so many of them at one time is really extraordinary. But we have lots of curious things. The auction runs the gamut from these beautiful little delicate all-bisque dolls to wonderful American, I call the show notes folk art. I know they're not, but to me they fall within that kind of category, to really curiosities and some gorgeous French dolls in original costumes. So let's just get started and start talking about some of the wonderful dolls in this collection. I wanted to put on this table an assortment not only of the all-bisque miniatures, but also a group of some of the little tiny French bébés, because they accompany each other so beautifully together. And I know so many of you are now saying, oh, I can't get another doll in my house. When I always say to you, you know, you always have room for one more little one. You can always find it at home. And they display so beautifully. So let's just start by beginning to look at some of them and see what we have. I'm going to start over here on the right-hand side. And I want to, in all cases, point out one of the things that's really curious about all bisques is you always must look at their feet, because you will find lots of varieties of feet, ranging from bare feet, which are actually quite beautiful. Sometimes on the Kestner all-bisque, you'll find these little chubby, I shouldn't say little, but chubby legs, thighs and calves, and then tapering down to these tiny ankles and tiny feet, which always to me is so appealing and charming. So we have right here a very wonderful all-bisque, and she is a barefoot charmer. And I'm going to hold her up. She is a French all-bisque. And I don't know if you can see her bare feet. I'll just hold it for you right now. I think it's probably a size 2. I'm just guessing. And she still retains, even though a bit worn, but she retains her original wig with the braid on the back and the hair bow in it, which is wonderful to find. And look at her facial expression. Now, I will tell you that over the years, I had always tended, when we had all-bisque, to show them naked, because I thought people really wanted to see the condition and see how the body was shaped. And I did a seminar a while ago, and I asked collectors who were there how they felt about it. Did they want them costumed, or did they like them nude? And oh, no, costumed. We want them costumed. So whenever possible now, I have them costumed. I personally find them very charming when they're nude. She's wearing her little original costume and has a swivel head, and she is a beautiful little French girl. Over here on the side, we have a lovely little girl. Now, a lot of studies going on, and we're going to wait for the final word, because I know 2 or 3 very serious scholarly collectors who are trying to make determinations of these early closed-mouth German dolls. Kestner, Kling, Alt-Beck and Gottschalk, or kind of a bit of each of them, or did one porcelain firm make them for all? We don't really know definitively. Mostly they have been attributed to Kestner, and I've kind of continued in that path until we learn differently. Check out her boots. Gray ankle boots. Very, very lovely right there, with a little green tassel ties. And she has a wonderful little chubby, smirky face. This is kind of what I mean when I say, look at those shapely little ankles and the chubby lower legs. Very, very nice. And swivel head, of course, so you can position her however you want. Beautifully costumed, a wonderful early closed-mouth miniature doll. She is standing in an arrangement with French mignonettes, or French bébés rather, and I particularly wanted to show you this one because, again, more and more as I point out to you, you are finding it difficult to find dolls in their original costumes. And here we have a beautiful little Steiner figure A, very sweet, original body, everything about her body finish, original wig is just beautiful. And to top it off, that gorgeous original French bébé costume with the silk lapels, the braided rope tassels or swags in the front, lace overlay on the skirt, and turning it around, we're seeing the same thing in the back, the all original with the little kind of faux bustle. Very, very charming. And even the original matching hat. Tip her head down so you can see the top of that hat. Very, very beautiful. And wonderful little shoes, and I don't remember, let's see. Yes, the shoes have a little number signature on them, so they're beautiful little leather shoes. Everything about her exactly as you love to find them. And sitting in the first of the Marklin carriages, these are absolutely wonderful, and they all have their original paint, original finish, and it kind of having this variety of them shows you the different styles that Marklin did. And as we go along, pay attention to, this is the flat-sided one. It doesn't have an embossed design on it, but it does have the ivory painted finish with the gold outline. And always the wheels seem to be like these double wheels, like they're coming out, and they're like this type of thing, which gave them added strength and made it a very, very durable toy. And based on the condition that we find them, I think they were really treasured by families because they seem quite often not to have too much wear, although they don't show up too often. So maybe the ones that really got played with, we just don't find. But here we have, sitting in this Marklin carriage, a tiny little bébé, and she is absolutely beautiful. And I want to point out to her, and I'm going to see if the mark will show. Yes, it will. On the back, her marking, she's marked the J, and this is an early Giovanni doll. Very, very seldom ever to find in this size. Giovanni has a very particular face. When you first look at it, you think Jumeau. And you look at it again, and you think Steiner. But still something is talking to you and saying, oh, it's a little bit different. And then you find the J mark in the back for Giovanni, who made very, very few dolls, a very small company. And so to find one that is in this petite size, that is as precious as this, is a real winner. And she has a wonderful little early antique costume as well, including, let me turn her around. I want you to see her, the back of her bonnet. Isn't that wonderful? You're very precious. She, by the way, matches the original sunshade on the carriage. Put your leg in. Okay. And then standing next to her, of course, is another of the Marklin carriage. Very, very similar. I think it's a little more ornate design with the blue flowers on it as well. But it is the blue ivory and gold finish. And looking inside, you can see the painted blue finish inside. And again, the double-spoked wheels, the little crest at the back, the wooden handle, and the collapsible sunshade. Now, moving along on our table of little ones here, I have two wonderful dolls because they're very curious to me. We have if you look at them immediately, you're going to think they're a Gaultier, that they're a little marked FG doll. But both of these dolls, indeed, are not. They're marked RD. They're by Raybury and Delfure, the two dolls standing here in the back, the tall ones. Very, very beautiful, very crisp, delicate faces, but something about the modeling on these was very defined, and that with a really fine quality painting really has made them very, very precious. And I'm going to hold her up because she's hiding behind the carriage and you can't really see her unless I hold her for you to see in her entirety. Wonderful little shoes. Oh, look at that face. That's great. And then bringing her all the way around. One of the things that people like about the early bébés, and I'm right there with them, is when they have this very delicate, pale complexion. Now she is playing with, look at that little guy, a very rare early Stiff dog, a little Boston Terrier in really rare colors with his early red cloth tag on him, signifying his date. Very seldom ever find him in this color, and let me hold him up so everybody can see that he is in absolutely mint condition. If you remember, we had an auction of wonderful teddy bears in January, the last of our, you can actually come to the auctions, And we had some wonderful teddy bears. And what we have in this auction are part 2 from that collection with some really great early teddy bears, animals, and Schuco mechanical toys. So watch for those. Next, we come across the other wonderful little French doll, a little bit larger. And again, eyes. The eyes that I call, those of you who know me, I use the phrase splendid eyes, and I say that adjective for ones that really have the splendid eyes, which she has eyes that just pop out at you. And to find them on these little dolls is really, really rare. So watch for that. When you find it, you have a winner. But you already know that every time you'd look at the doll, you'd have a winner. And then we come to another All-bisque mignonette. I'm going to hold up, and again, first thing we're going to do is check out her boots. And here they're very, very different. They're the high-laced black boots with little heels on them. Very, very fine. And this is great because the costuming could be done in a number of ways with this very stylized boot. And here she's wearing a little lace dress, and she has, again, the swivel head and what we presently attribute to being the Kestner All-bisque miniature. We have another wonderful little Marklin carriage. And in this particular example, please look at the sides, because now we're not seeing the smooth tin plate sides. We're seeing the embossed design, which actually is designed to appear as though it's a basket weave, well, like a woven wicker carriage would be. So again, but the same kind of colors are used, the white, the blue, and then the gilt trim, and the double-spoked wheels, and the rolled handle with a wooden grip. Now, my next big girl is popularly known as the A.T. Kestner. We're during a time period in France and Germany where the Germans are starting to pay attention to the French dolls that are kind of capturing the world because they're so just beautiful, plain beautiful. So the Germans decide, well, we can get in on that market. So they start to emulate some of the French dolls, and we see a production of child dolls coming out of Germany during the early 1880 period, 1882 to 1888, that are, well, virtual copies of the French dolls. This one is known as the A.T. Kestner because she so closely resembles the little bébé made by André Toulier in France. And she has the same little kind of pointy tip nose, very, very distinctive look that's instantly recognizable whenever you see it. And this one is very precious because of her wonderful size. It's just really a very, very dear doll. And we're going to come back and talk about this French connection in a bit. But in the meantime, let me show you another, as we're going along the table, another little All-bisque miniature. This one, in my opinion, looking at her face, it's, again, a very, very distinctive look. Once you start to see enough, I think you'd probably agree with me that this one was probably made by the Simon and Halbig firm because it has that very, very distinctive look. And let's look at her little boots. Little ankle boots in this really rare peach color. Very, very seldom ever see that. And it's wonderful. Now, sometimes people, when they're talking about condition of dolls, and I do want to take a moment to discuss this, you're going to very seldom ever find an all-bisque doll that doesn't have some kind of little pin flakes on the paint at the stringing loops. This one appears to be entirely fine, but if you see the peg hole here, and that's what they were. They used little wooden pegs to hold the joints together in these early dolls. And it's very, very common. Do not let that deter you from buying an all-bisque miniature because you'll probably never get any if you do. It can impact how much you decide to pay, but it certainly is not a detriment to keep you from buying them. They're such precious little dolls. They really are. And once again, you can always find room for one more in your house. Now, seated in the carriage with her is what I call one of the classic dolls that have always been attributed to Kestner, and we're just going to wait for the final definitive answer on that. And look at her little boots, fancy little blue ankle boots. And this is, again, what I'm talking about, her tiny, tiny little ankles and feet compared to her kind of chubby, hearty, sturdy body. It gives the doll a very dainty sort of look. Very, very beautiful doll. Let me turn her around and check out the bonnet on this doll. Do you know how difficult it is to find one of these antique bonnets? This is absolutely wonderful. All of these dolls have their original mohair wigs as well, which is very, very wonderful to find. In the front, and we left these naked, Connie Bailey was very, very particular in choosing her dolls that would have wonderful original bodies and body finishes. And so these particular little dolls, even though they have costumes, we left them for the photography in the catalog and for you to see with their original bodies. And this is what the bodies would look like, with the loose ball joints at the arms, the big ball joints at the hips. And again, look at this little girl. I'm going to hold her up so I can show you a little. I'll take the stand off and then you can really see it a little better. Okay. Now, let's look at her profile. She could use some good exercise here on her little chubby butt. But it's just a wonderful body. And once you have these in this wonderful condition, you just, I don't know, maybe you just could display them naked because their little bodies are so cute. Even little dimples on the elbows I'm seeing here, which is wonderful. Okay? And the fine gleaming original finish. Look at the little elbow dimples. Can your camera pick that up? That's really quite nice. Now this is one of the dolls that have the square cut upper teeth, which is a very distinctive feature to find from this time period. I wanted to have her here because I wanted to show you while we're doing this, scan over here and look at this doll and then the other with a composition body, and then look at the far end at the other doll. We have 10 inches, 11-inch all-bisque. So not only made with composition body, but made in this all-bisque version, which is so rare, virtually never found. I don't know if that's a result of not many were made, or how difficult it would have been for a child to play with that and preserve it without doing damage to it. And here we have one of the very rarely found examples that is just in wonderful condition. So I'm going to set this back here, and I'm going to bring her little sister back here. She does not have the square cut teeth. This one has the very classic closed mouth that we immediately distinguish with the Kestner, and has that very sweet expression. And I'm going to show you something in just a moment. Make sure I have the right one. Yes. Okay, well first we'll stick with the one in the front. We have another little wonderful all-bisque, and again, actually look at the feet, the bare feet, and this is a perfect example of one with a little chubby body, and then it's not just the ankles are tiny. Here, look at it from the back, then you can really see it. Not just the ankles that are tiny, but those tiny little feet. Oh, this is a wonderful doll. I would say, what a great display you could have in your cabinet if you could have 2 or 3 of these, and they're all kind of playing together, and they're, you know, barefoot in the sun, and they're all dressed up, but then they decided to take their shoes off for the picnic, and they're about to go ruin their dress walking in the pond. I think I've been staying home too long here, so I'm having all of these notions. She has sleep eyes and swivel head, and these are all features that add value to an all-bisque doll. Now, I pointed out to you the little girl on the end, and let's talk about her for a minute again, because she is so rare as to her size. But what I'd also like to point out to you is look at her body shape. That is very, very distinctive. Instead of having that big butt, she's got this little rolled child belly, which is so cute. I mean, this is just a wonderful doll and a great expression, and even though they are sleep eyes, they have beautiful threading in them. So a great all-bisque miniature in every way, extremely rare, just perfect to find, and everything about her is, well, you just want her. You want to own her. Well, now I want to bring you to my last 2, because, and let me just look at them one more time to see if I agree. Okay, I do. I agree with my own idea. So that's always good to never argue with yourself. I think that not enough research has been done. We talk about all of the research that was done between all of the dolls that the Germans copied that the French were making. And I don't think there's been enough attention paid to the connection between the look of the early Schmidt dolls, of which this large doll is, a French bébé by Schmidt et Fils, and the early closed-mouth Kestners. Because no one has paid attention to this, but I don't know. There needs to be a little more research done on this. You know that Schmidt came from Germany originally. He grew up in Germany. That's where he had his first income, his first working, and he went to France, and because he got married in France, he was able to become a French citizen, and then eventually went to Paris, and that's where he had his doll business. But I think so closely, and let's just turn them and you can catch the profile of them. Beautiful, early Schmidt bébé, so closely related to, I have them standing the same way, is that right? Okay. So just a little curiosity for you to do some more thinking about, and any of you who are able to get in and do the research, you know, if you have the German language, it's so much easier to do the research, because many of these early pieces you really need German, and you not only need German, but you need the old German language. Well, now I'm going to show you some of the beautiful French dolls that are coming up in this auction as well.